Look, kid, everyone wants to believe they're chosen. But if we all waited around for a prophecy to make us special, we'd die waiting. And that's why you need to choose yourself.
Does that mean you'll give me a magic staff of my own?
Not yet, but someday.
Some chosen ones are chosen by a magic sword. Some are born chosen. And some are made chosen real late in the game by a prophecy that kind of comes out of nowhere. There's a lot of different ways for a chosen one to come to exist. But what I want to talk about is why I think Luz Noceda, the main protagonist of Disney's The Owl House, is the best chosen one we've seen thus far. A general chosen one story typically goes something like this. It starts off with a normal kid living their normal life, and things are generally mundane, boring, and the kid themselves are just your typical normal everyday kid. At least until the thing happens. And the thing can be anything. It can be an alien watch falling from space, to the cast being transported to an entirely different world. It can literally be anything. It's just the catalyst that kickstarts the narrative. And this is important, because we as the audience need to see what these chosen ones were like before they were chosen, their normal everyday life before everything changed. It makes them relatable. And that's really important, because at its core, the chosen one trope is a bit of wish fulfillment, because it's the idea and want to be special, to believe that something about them intrinsically has cosmic or universal significance. And that wish fulfillment also doubles as a promise to the audience for later. It's promising to the audience that something interesting will happen in the future, and that this relatable character who hasn't figured themselves out yet will eventually come to their own and become someone worthwhile. But how does Luz Noceda, this little nerd right here, fit into all this? When most chosen ones are chosen, they're typically chosen either at random or because the universe said so without much explanation. It's typically hand-waved that, oh, you're worthy, or because the weird mechanical giant lion said so. But they rarely ever go in depth about explaining why this person was chosen, or why this person was ever really worthy to begin with. But Luz, however, is a very unique and special kind of chosen one. She's the chosen one that wasn't chosen by any random chance or order. She was intentionally picked by virtue of her character. Imagine being chosen because a divine being was just like, you know what? This kid's pretty cool. Blam! Luz is a very cool chosen one because she wasn't born with this. She has no grand prophecy hanging over her head and wasn't trying to reclaim a birthright or anything. But by virtue of who she was, by virtue of just being this genuinely kind and noble soul, she was chosen. And what makes her the best, I think, is all the things that she's supposed to represent, both in the real world and in the narrative, her effect on the Boiling Isles, and ultimately what her victory signifies. Let's tackle that first thing first. If the function of the chosen one trope is to be relatable, and of course to be wish fulfillment, I think Luz is catering to a lot of generally underrepresented demographics. Luz is canonically a bi-female Afro-Latina who comes from a non-nuclear household, with some very clear bouts of some form of neurodivergency, and all of it comes through really clearly just by good character writing and design. And you can tell that this wasn't just tacked on to try and win brownie points with the audience. The Owl House team really did care. And Luz appearing as the main protagonist here, and of course being the chosen one in the manner that she was, it lets all those underrepresented groups know that they're important, and that they matter. And the discussion of representation and diversity has been a hot button topic for a while, and so I'm just gonna give my 2 cents here. Neurodivergency has existed since the beginning. Queer people have existed since the beginning. And non-white groups have definitely existed since the beginning. But the media before didn't reflect that. but we're getting there now, and that's a good thing. It's more accurately portraying the world as it actually is. Minor thing I want to gush about, and I don't know if it was intentional, but it reads intentional, so I'm just going to give the benefit of the doubt here. The fact that Luz can't learn magic in the normal way that every other witch on the Boiling Isles does reads as like a form of learning disability. And that's so fascinating because I've never seen a story actually try to tackle that in a very meaningful and well done manner. She can still learn magic, she just doesn't learn it the way that other people do. And it doesn't mean that she can't do it or that she's lesser for it, it just means that she has to figure out her own way to do it, and of course needs a little help along the way. And that's fine, and that's genuinely so cool that the Owl House was really thinking that far ahead.
Kristen, the greatest magic of all. Do you remember?
Is friendship.
What the fuck?
But going back to the topic at hand, Luz's effectiveness as a chosen one. I find that most stories have about two routes that they generally go towards when it comes to handling their major conflict. Beating the enemy and returning the world to a just status quo, or opting to change it entirely. A lot of stories generally go the route of the world was once good, but then evil King Bad just took over, and now that he's gone, the world can be good again. And the problems are generally hand-waved away, because the bad guy is gone now, and it wasn't a problem with the institutions or the structures at play, it was just that one bad egg. And for a simple and clean narrative, it's fine. But the Owl House goes above and beyond that. They say that your heroes are only as good as their villains. And if that's the case, Luz is a saint, cause oh my god, Emperor Belos is heinous. Series antagonist Emperor Belos is representative of a lot of things. He's a hyper-religious racist zealot from the 1600s, and who also developed the society that the cast find themselves in. And he built that society with the intent to make everyone conform to him, to limit their potential, and to assist him in working towards their mass extermination. He is antithetical to every positive message that the series is trying to say. The idea that there's a right and uniform way to exist. The belief that some people are just inherently better than others, and that they're chosen by God to deliver some kind of divine judgment on those that they deem lesser than, squashing their growth or incentivizing them to take a path that doesn't really work for them. Belos sucks, and the effect he has on the world is very obviously clearly bad and corrupting. But the thing about Belos is that he's not cartoonishly evil like you see so many times before. He's an actual representative of real-world evil that exists today, that seeks to do actual real-world harm. When the Owl House was cut short, Dana said that there was one executive that said the show just did not fit the Disney brand. And he's kind of right. The Owl House has a lot of things it wants to say and do, and it aims to do it in a very real and meaningful, impactful way. But when you're trying to sell a show to a global audience, you're not always going to be able to do that. So Luz existing as this minority status, LGBT, neurodivergent character makes it all the more meaningful when she eventually beats Belos. She not only beats him, she then proceeds to destroy his effect upon the world. She destroys his ideology. She destroys the structures and systems that he built on the world. She quite literally destroys everything that he stood for, and then proceeds to replace it with something better. It wasn't just a simple beat the bad guy and then all is good again. It was beat the bad guy and make sure that their very beliefs are destroyed. And honestly, that is a genuine and total victory. Luz isn't perfect. When she started this journey, she was just a little nerd who didn't know where she belonged in the world, and wanted so desperately to be special and understood. She wanted to run away from her regular everyday life, and then escape and lose herself to the fantasy. She had no great spells, no secret bloodline that gave her special abilities, no magic sword that helped make her worthy. But what she did have to offer was her kindness. She helped people change for the better. She helped them find their path and helped them exist freely. And when the journey was over, she didn't outgrow or outlive the fantasy. She took it with her. And I think symbolically that's genuinely just so beautiful. And that's why Luz Noceda is the best chosen one. Thanks for watching.